Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your day and weekend out there. Got you a pretty big update this morning on what can happen for your Saturday. As you can tell, there's a lot of tabs pulled up, so you know this is going to be a longer video, which most of my videos are. But we're going to try to compare some scenarios for you folks and just try to give you an idea, even though this forecast is pretty difficult to figure out, on, I guess, where we think the highest confidence is to see some rough weather today. Honestly, I would say the area that has the highest chance for some severe weather today probably has the best confidence, I would say. There's areas like in the southern Alps region, like Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, even the Carolinas, North Georgia, Virginia, where things are a little bit more of a question mark, and we'll talk about that in this video. We'll break it all down for you folks. I understand there's probably a lot of people doing some outdoor activities with 4th of July festivities and things like that. Somebody made a really good point in the comments on last night's video saying, there's a lot of fireworks shows that are potentially canceled because of this smoke, things like that. So that'll be interesting. Let me know if that is the case in your town or community or city. But we're going to cover it all in this video, talk about the air quality. We'll have a tab up for that, talk about the temperatures, the severe weather threat, and try to keep you guys ahead of this system. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Appreciate all the encouraging words and nice things you guys had to say from last night's video. Last night's video was one of those videos where I did not expect for it to get 15,000 views, but sure enough, I woke up to it and I was just like, wow. It's just amazing. It was a great last video to cap off the month of June. So once again, for the 100th time in the month of June, thank y'all for the amazing support. It's really appreciated. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. And it's a great way to glorify God through prayer. Let's get rolling this morning. Water vapor loop. This is how we always start it off for any new viewers. Let's wake this thing up, make sure she's working. She is. So the ridge is kind of like this now, right? It's kind of bending over areas of the Midwest and then sort of doing this. This is what it looks like to a degree. So this is what this ridge of high pressure is. So this is basically where all the weather is going in a nutshell. So obviously it's going to work its way a little bit further south into this region where we are expecting some severe storms in Missouri and Illinois today. But in general, this is what the flow aloft is going to be for these showers and storms, waves of showers and storms is going to move through certain areas today. This will eventually trail off into Virginia, the central and southern Alps region of, West Virginia, the Carolinas, eastern Tennessee, things like that, eastern Kentucky. We got to watch this later this afternoon, this evening. But this is where the worst weather is going to be in this region. The West is pretty quiet today. There ain't a whole lot to speak on. You're heating up, but we do see a cool down, especially for the northern Rockies here in the near future for you folks. But we won't talk about that much yet. But this is what the pattern looks like today. You can actually see it. You see the wider colors on your screen. That is where weather is going on. You got showers and storms this morning ongoing over areas actually that are going to be impacted by nasty weather today. In fact, we'll get this in loop here, and we're going to probably have to restart it and get it going again. Let's see if we have no glitches, and we don't. And, what I just kind of drew on the water vapor loop shows it well. These storms are moving in from this way, and then they move more so this way, and then they start to sink southeast. So, it's a good indicator, even on radar, outside of water vapor loop, of what the flow is out there. The center of this high is right into here somewhere, and everything's flowing around it. So these complexes of storms are going to continue to flow around this ridge of high pressure, and eventually some of them can make it into the Gulf of Mexico, actually begin to turn southwest. And, we had that complex of storms yesterday that I'm not quite sure if it ever did make it to the Gulf of Mexico, but it came awfully close, okay? And this originated from the Midwest, so it's pretty wild. I'm not a big summer weather fan. I think you folks that's been tuning in for a while know that, but I do like watching how these setups unfold. But right now, you got a lot of rain. You guys were needing rain in Illinois. It's feast and famine out there. You guys went from super dry to now getting a ton of rain. And here it goes in motion. You guys I've been dealing with rounds of showers and storms all morning, continue to do so. This has now moved completely into Indiana, waking up to some rain, heavy rain in Indianapolis. And here comes more rain coming up from the southwest, moving northeast. And it's pretty wild. It flows in from this way, moves west to east, then flows back from the northwest to the southeast. And you got a severe warning storm here in the northeast corner of Tennessee as of 7:13 a.m. Eastern time. Check out this little spin. And this will probably be the mechanism that fires up strong to severe storms in this region later today. We got to watch how it unfolds. Getting some rain here in western PA. I think I've heard a couple people say it's quite dry in this region. Getting a little bit of rain this morning. And we got to watch to see what this kind of leftover MCS, mesoscale convective system, does as it begins to continue to trail off into the Carolinas later this morning. But, you got a lot of pieces out there. What does this do to the atmosphere ahead of more storms that fires up later? That's a big question. So the latest Storm Prediction Center update, and I want to always let you guys know, typically in these morning videos, typically a day of a big severe weather day, kind of like today, you have another update within an hour and a half, 2 hours after I drop these morning videos. So this enhanced risk could expand. You could have a small corridor of where a moderate risk is introduced, which would be a level 4 out of 5. But as of now, right now, you have this enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, in this orange. This includes central to southern Illinois, southern and southwest sections of Indiana, all of western Kentucky, and then areas of eastern Missouri, which does include the St. Louis area. Okay, slight risk is pretty large. It extends across pretty much the entire Ohio Valley, areas of the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South, into areas of the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. This is in the yellow, slight. And then the marginal risk. You can't ignore this. You can have severe weather and a marginal risk today. This extends all the way from central Kansas all the way up into northern portions of Vermont, all the way down into central areas of Georgia and Alabama, including Columbia, South Carolina, all the way into eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. So the threat today, it has not increased to a 5% risk like I was thinking it was. I'll admit when I call something and I'm wrong, you still got the 2% risk, but I still think you're going to increase this to a 5% risk in the next update or two leading up to these storms sweeping through this afternoon. But as of now, it's still just got the 2% risk of a tornado. The confidence is just not high enough to pop up the 5% risk. But as of now, pretty much everybody in this green area has a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given location. But by far the biggest threat today will be winds. This is a conditional severe weather threat today for sure. Meaning you could have just regular strong to severe storms, but you have that chance to have a high-end scenario that unfolds. This kind of happened Thursday, right? Where it was kind of like how it was like this in the morning. We were expecting severe storms, but it quickly escalated as we moved into the late morning hours. That could be how this unfolds today. That's why it's important to stay up to date with latest information. But you have the 30% hatched risk, which in the red, which basically means in this enhanced region right here that I just mentioned, western Kentucky, southwest Indiana, central and southern areas of Illinois, and then eastern Missouri, you have a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 50 to 60 miles per hour. And then a 10% risk of winds exceeding hurricane force winds, which is winds exceeding about 74 to 75 miles per hour, 65 knots or higher, which is in mile per hour readings around 75 miles per hour. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today with this. Do not ignore everybody in this 15% risk area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour, because you guys could see some hurricane force winds too with some of these storms. Hail threat today, nothing hatched as of now. You have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in this yellow area. So can't ignore the hail threat, but they don't have high confidence that this will be a significant hail event, but you can't ignore it for sure. The excessive rainfall outlook, pretty large area that has a slight risk. And I could see in the next update or two, if we continue to get waves of heavy rain, a moderate risk being issued somewhere over Indiana or Illinois. As of now, you have a 50, or even Kentucky. As of now, you got a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met. This really goes off elevation and especially off how much rain you've got lately. So you have that chance of flash flooding. So don't let that get past you or slip past you. watches and warnings, most of this is driven off heat. You got excessive heat warnings for the entire state of Mississippi, all of western Tennessee, all of eastern Arkansas, pretty much all of eastern and southeastern Louisiana, all of western Alabama, even some counties in central Alabama. Heat advisories that almost extend all the way to the Georgia-South Carolina border. But it's going to be another hot one out here today. Highs in the upper 90s and heat indices. It's always a tough word to say. Heat indices, reaching over 110 degrees, which is your feel-like temperatures. Okay, so do your heat precautions out there. Stay safe, and I would limit outdoor activities for sure. Speaking of limiting outdoor activities, the air quality has improved across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. It's still, it's still somewhat unhealthy, but the red area, this is areas, let's see if we can pull this up on the fly here. This is where the red is unhealthy air quality in this region. So, the Northeast, especially the interior Northeast, if you're doing any hiking up here in the Northeast or any outdoor activities for the 4th of July, whatever you may be doing, keep in mind it's still pretty smoky, pretty hazy, and some of this is really reaching the surface. And listen to your body. That's what we always say in my F3 group that we work out in. And just definitely listen to the signs and feel the signs of your body. Be careful with any outdoor activities out here with the smoke that continues to plague the atmosphere here. All right, let's break it down. So the Southeast, we'll take a broad approach at this. And we'll start off this morning, wondering what time frame we're at. Time frame is right here. This is an Eastern time. So if you're obviously in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, this is Central time. But you get this in motion. And we watch the leftover moisture that flies across areas of West Virginia, Kentucky from what's going on in Illinois and Indiana. This will eventually make its way across West Virginia. And I'm going to zoom into each individual region, but just taking a broad look at this really quick. This flies into Virginia later on. Some intense storms are possible in Virginia. And then we make it all the way to the evening hours. Could be dealing with some showers and storms in Virginia, North Carolina. And then we watch this complex of storms, which could mean business moving across Indiana and Kentucky later on. So that's kind of a broad look at what happens today. But let's zoom into many of these regions. Take a look at the Southern Alps region. So we're going to talk about Kentucky in two different frames here. It's just how it blends in with this. The HRRR model today, we'll take a look at that first. Then we'll take a look at the NAM. We'll compare them and see how different they are. And I can tell you they're not much different. But we'll get this rolling here. And we're watching these showers and storms. Right into here, they're moving to West Virginia. They could pack a punch as early as just after lunchtime. And we'll talk about you folks in Ohio, even West Virginia twice here in a second. But really focusing in on Tennessee, Virginia, really the Carolinas, and even Georgia. Well, watching these storms as they sink southward, I think these storms could get intense right off the mountains of Virginia. I would say mid-afternoon, that 4 to 5, 6 p.m. time frame. You got some pop-up strong to severe storms popping up in and around central Tennessee. Some isolated strong storms in Kentucky. But you keep this going here. And I want to remind y'all do have a slight risk that extends all the way into the upstate of South Carolina and includes central to western North Carolina, northern Georgia. But I mean, you might not get a drop of rain. It's going to be interesting today. We take it all the way to about 7 to 8 p.m. You do got some strong to severe storms in North Carolina, the northern half of it, a strong storm or two, and maybe in southern Kentucky, the Cumberland Plateau, the Tennessee part of it. But you start to make your way into well after the sun goes down, 10, 11 p.m. There's not a whole lot going on in South Carolina and Georgia. There really isn't. North Carolina, some storms. But you get to around 3 o'clock in the morning, here comes a round of storms moving into Tennessee, eastern Tennessee. These could pack a punch in the wee hours in the morning. Watch out Knoxville and surrounding regions. These could fly over the Alps, and then we're waking up Sunday morning to some pretty stormy times, according to the HRRR model for your Sunday morning in the mountains of North Carolina, maybe even Virginia and Tennessee. Okay, that's what the HRRR model says. The NAM says you could have a lull sometime early in the afternoon, and then some storms might fire up here in Virginia. It's right here in central Virginia, sweep across and get into eastern Virginia. And then, you stop it here 6, 7, 8 p.m. Not a whole lot going on, right? And you have a round of storms making its way through areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, into this region. But man, I tell you, the NAM, it doesn't show much in this entire slight region. It really doesn't. These storms could be quite intense in areas of Kentucky, West Virginia, as we're getting into after midnight tonight. But I mean, there's not much that goes on in the afternoon and evening based off the NAM. Now let me show you, but I will say the NAM agrees with the HRRR model with there being showers and storms that you're waking up to in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina tomorrow morning. I'll show you another model that I don't show much. It's called the FV3 model, and this model does well sometimes. Let me show you how different this looks. I'll take it all the way to about the afternoon hours. This is totally different. This is around 4 or 5 p.m. this afternoon. It shows a lot of strong to severe storms in Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, even central Tennessee, northwest Georgia. Storms are in northern Alabama. So, hey, I mean, if this is correct, you got to respect this model a little bit more. But a lot of people look at this model, including experts and National Weather Service. So let's see if this model ends up being correct today. If it is, it would indicate that the slight risk makes a lot more sense in this region, because you take it 7, 8 p.m., getting close to the sun going down. It's a lot of activity ongoing, basically from Birmingham, Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, and then western North Carolina. There's a lot more activity going on off this model. So we have to watch and see what happens. The updraft helicity swath over the next 24 hours. We'll talk about this here in a second, but, it shows a couple areas to watch for any kind of spinning updrafts, but the tornado threat is pretty low down here in this region. But, there is a risk for damaging wind gusts with some of these storms. It's just one of those days. I think every day when you have severe weather is one of those days, but it's definitely one of those days where you definitely want to have a way to get alerts. But as you can tell, the Storm Prediction Center has that slight risk all the way into central Virginia, all the way to Raleigh, Charlotte, North Carolina, the Greenville, Spartanburg area, almost all the way down to Atlanta, and covers the entire state of Tennessee. So just know that, some of these models don't indicate it very well, but we could certainly have some severe storms in areas where the models don't indicate anything in any given hour this afternoon, this evening. Temperatures today, okay, upper 90s for most of everybody on your screen, except these higher elevations that you see. Upper 90s, over 100 degrees air temperature, okay? Not only do you have these hot temperatures, you have the heat indices, okay? The feels like temperatures when you combine basically the dew points with the air temperatures. You'll get over 110 degrees in Memphis today. Pick your poison, pick your area, and that's around where the heat index will be based off the National Weather Service, which are the experts here. Well over 105 to 110 degrees. The heat index in Atlanta will be pushing 105 degrees. Hot Atlanta will definitely make its name known. But look at Nashville up there, guys. 108, 109 degrees. Very hot temperatures. Okay. And not to ignore my folks here in the Carolinas. But it's going to get into the mid to maybe upper 90s. I'm sorry. This is Sunday. Sunday will be much hotter. Today, a little bit cooler compared to tomorrow, where the heat dome really shifts a little further east. But, low to mid 90s for a lot of folks outside that higher terrain. And the heat indices will be pretty hot too, guys. They will creep above 100, I think, into the PD of North Carolina. The PD of South Carolina, the Midlands of South Carolina. Heat indices will reach well over 100, very hot in Georgia too. And then you could get a heat index or two in some of these towns that could get over 100 degrees as far north as Virginia. So very hot. The Northeast today could be quite stormy too. Okay, you get into this afternoon, we'll watch these showers and storms in West Virginia. We'll zoom into these areas here in a second, but I do want to just cover everybody really quick. I will say you could get some strong storms in the southern tier of New York State, the Finger Lakes region. So if you're doing any outdoor activities in this region, expect some showers and storms around the 4 to 5, 6 p.m. time frame, give or take an hour. Some storms are possible in western to central PA. And, it could be quite stormy up here in the Adirondacks of upstate New York and central New York State. And we make our way into the into the middle of the night tonight. You could have some lingering moisture flying through these areas of the interior Northeast and New England. Could be waking up to some showers and storms tomorrow in Vermont, New Hampshire, Western Mass, and New York State for sure. But let's zoom into these regions. Let's talk about the Mid-Atlantic here. We'll get here in time. This is just another tricky scenario where, I think it's going to get quite stormy pretty early this afternoon in West Virginia. This will, you'll get widespread shower and storm activity in West Virginia probably just after lunchtime, lasting throughout the mid to late afternoon. And then I would say this clears out. You might have a break in West Virginia later today, and it will stop it here. This is around 5, 6, 7 p.m. I think a line of storms could get going in Virginia. And so, just be aware of this. If you're in central to eastern Virginia, keep your eyes of the skies out to the west of you folks, because some storms can move through Washington, D.C. Some powerful storms could make their way through the area sometime later this afternoon, this evening. These will make their way into the Delmarva area where they could lose some steam. You guys definitely had a stormy late afternoon, evening yesterday. Could be the same way this evening. Watch out for some storms. They could lose some steam as they make their way into the evening into your region. But, you look down here in North Carolina, it could be quite stormy in and around the Raleigh area, Greensboro later this afternoon, this evening. So be aware of some storms in this region. And then you make your way into the overnight hours, and we watch what's left over of the energy we're going to talk about for the enhanced region out west. We watch as that makes its way over Virginia into the wee hours of the morning, makes its way into northeast Ohio. I would say probably 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And in Pittsburgh, you could wake up to a line of storms tomorrow morning. This could affect Erie too, and then this will dissipate. So we'll watch for that. But definitely a stormy day across the Mid-Atlantic and areas of the Northeast for sure. The South Central U.S., this will probably be one of the quieter areas, honestly. The only area that I'll watch for here is in Southwest Texas, where you do have a slight risk. So you could have a strong supercell or two here in Southwest Texas. So be careful for some large hail damaging winds. And here it is. Watch out around the south of Lubbock area, Odessa region. You could have some strong storms out here, strong to severe storms. And then these could grow up scale, and then they can try to move across areas of Texas. I think they'll dissipate, but it could get stormy in southwest Oklahoma into the overnight hours. And then you could wake up to some storm action, potentially some showers, heavy rain storms here in southeast areas of Oklahoma, based off the HRRR model, maybe central Arkansas. So be aware, if you're in southwest Texas today, you look at the Storm Prediction Center, you do have that slight risk in Midland, south of Lubbock, Fort Stockton, marginal risk. But, be careful in this region because you could have some strong to severe storms. Let's go to the south central U.S. region. This weak low flying through here in Iowa. This will be the igniter for some big storms today that could start off in southern Iowa and northern Missouri and then fly through areas of Missouri and especially Illinois. You see them down here. We're going to zoom into this area here in a second. But you could get some storm action and kind of central areas of Michigan, even areas of southern Wisconsin a little bit later today, this afternoon, this evening. And then you see these storms flying through areas of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. But really, everybody else up here, I did not want to ignore you folks. There's not a whole lot going on in Minnesota, Wisconsin, most of Wisconsin. But as we are getting well after midnight tonight, this little low flies through and could bring some stormy weather as you're waking up for your Sunday morning in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, even into Chicago as we're making our way through. So watch out tomorrow morning. I don't expect this to be super intense, but definitely plan accordingly for your Sunday morning. All right, so I had to adjust my seat there. So for this region right here, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Western Kentucky, everybody seeing your screen. We'll take a look at the HRRR model first. So we watch to see how this morning convection clears off. The HRRR model in the NAM does indicate what's going on, but of course, it's not as widespread as what's actually falling. So the widespread shower and storm action that's ongoing this morning, does that prevent somewhat from a big-time severe weather threat later on today? Well, most model guidance says no. You already got some storm action popping up, around lunchtime around the Evansville, southern Indiana region. I'm going to obviously need to pull out my phone. I need to have this ready a little bit more for you folks, but we'll do it quick. But as you can tell, you stop it here. It's around 1 p.m. not a ton going on. You kind of have a wide open range where not a whole lot of action is going on here. I got my phone pulled up, but you keep going throughout the afternoon and you stop it here. It's around 3 p.m. So, I mean, it's pretty early in the day, relatively speaking here. You got some nasty storms that potentially could become strong to severe very quick, produce damaging winds, hail, and even a brief tornado threat. You see how kind of discreet these cells are? That's what worries me about a higher tornado threat. But it's not about what the storms look like on the models. It's about what the atmospheric dynamics are, out there in the atmosphere. So if they're not really there for a tornado threat, then the confidence will be lower for a tornado threat. But let's keep rolling here. We get into our 4 to 5 p.m. time frame. We'll stop it here. We got strong to severe storms in northern Missouri, any of the small towns and communities in northern Missouri, southern Iowa. I would say this will be south of Des Moines. It could make it as far north as the Davenport area, the Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, but I would say that this stays southeast of you folks around the Burlington area. Quincy, you guys could experience some intense storms, really 3, 4, 5 p.m., maybe give or take an hour. St. Louis, the same way. These basically fly across the Mississippi River, I would say early to mid-afternoon. And then they really could potentially become dangerous as they enter Illinois. We make it our way into 5 p.m. Springfield, Illinois, Beardstown, Pittsfield, Peoria, a lot of areas into here, all the way down to Carbondale, pretty much Bloomington, Illinois. Your time frame, I would say, would be mid to late afternoon through the evening time frame. We stop it here. This could very well be more of a line of storms. This could be discrete. The models have really trended to more of kind of a broken up line. But just know that any of these storms could pack a punch today. To me personally, I don't think it'll be as bad as Thursday in this region. I know a lot of people are on guard because of that. I have a feeling that's why the views have increased from these videos, probably from these folks in this region. I don't blame you because you're probably on high alert from what happened Thursday. To me, and I could be totally wrong, don't go off just what I say, I don't think it'll be quite as bad as Thursday, but these storms will sweep through this area. They could be hit or miss. They could be. But you stop it here. This is around 6 p.m. You got strong storms in the Boot Hill, Missouri, southern Illinois. These are starting to get closer to that Illinois-Indiana border. Strong storms as far north as Peoria, okay, as Ottawa, all right? Getting up here, Princeton, Dixon. The storms as far north as that. But I do want to let you guys know that Peoria, it's kind of that cutoff zone, and just south, the chance for a very strong to severe storms really cuts off here in northern Illinois. So they're really thinking, because of this low pressure right in here, most of the dynamics are going to be the highest right in here. So Chicago, you're probably in that northern zone, but that doesn't mean that you might not get that doesn't mean that you're not going to get a strong or severe storm today. You take it all the way to 7, 8 p.m. This is when this line of storms really becomes a line of storms, moves into the Indiana area. Evansville, watch out. All of western sections of Indiana, Lafayette, pretty much anybody, the Bloomington, Indiana area. This is getting close to Indianapolis. It's around 8 p.m. The sun is beginning to set. And watch out for an intense line of storms that begins to sweep into this region. And then it's looking very intense down here in southern Indiana, also along that Kentucky-Indiana border. As these storms blast through, I would really watch out, sections like Louisville, Cincinnati. These storms look the most intense around 10 p.m. based off this run of the HRRR model around this time frame. These really blast through, and then they enter Ohio, which I'll show you here in a second. And then what happens into the overnight hours, we'll watch for this little spin and more showers and storms associated with this weak low pressure in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. But that's the run of the HRRR model. The NAM is similar. It's doing terrible with the convection this morning, worse than the HRRR model, but we make our way into the early to mid-afternoon time frame. Same kind of deal. Pops up these storms in eastern areas of Missouri, western Illinois. They begin to sweep through. I would watch out. I would say that I would say the NAM is a little bit slower than the HRRR model with the evolution of the storms. But, St. Louis, if you're going off the NAM, watch out later in the afternoon. But these storms get really close to the Peoria area. Point south, I would say south central to southern Illinois will be the area to watch. But when you take it to 7, 8 p.m., these storms are really blasting through Illinois. Okay, but you got scattered convection, which these could be strong to severe storms too, especially if you don't get any storm initiation in this area early in the afternoon. The atmosphere is still ripe for severe weather, but you keep this going, and the NAM really isn't that impressive. I'll admit it, it's not near as worrisome looking as the HRRR model, but this kind of blasts through here, and you got showers and storms around the midnight time frame. For up here in northern Indiana, northern Illinois, all the way down to Kentucky. So the NAM is a little bit weirder, I can tell you that. But you look at the HRRR model a little bit further east, and you'll continue to deal with these shower and storm activity all the way through the afternoon and evening hours for Ohio, West Virginia. We've already kind of talked about West Virginia, but the convection that's ongoing this morning in Indiana, Illinois, this will trail off into areas of Ohio. We'll see if we get daytime heating ahead of this in Ohio. Some of these, I would watch out in areas of Ohio for some stronger storms out here. They are possible in southern Ohio, but there's a chance that they don't really materialize. We'll see what happens. But we will really watch what happens later in the afternoon and evening for these areas. But I would watch out, like I said, in West Virginia, after the lunchtime period later today, you could have some bad weather in West Virginia. Watch out. Huntington, Charleston, West Virginia, even Morgantown, West Virginia. These areas you guys could experience some severe storms just after lunchtime today. It's possible you could have some severe weather ongoing along the Kentucky-Indiana state line. And then this is what we watch for later on, this line of storms that blast through. These move through the Louisville, Cincinnati area, Dayton region. They could be quite intense in Kentucky throughout the late evening hours. For example, this doesn't really fully get into Kentucky based off this run until later this evening after the sun goes down. But please, if you don't get much storm activity today in Kentucky, don't let your guard down. You could have a powerful line of storms that moves through later tonight. I mean, this is getting into about the midnight time frame. These storms are making their way to Columbus, to Cleveland, and then we've already covered the time frame in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. But I would say Ohio, you'll get the morning and early afternoon shower and storm activity, and then you watch out later tonight for another round that moves through. You look at the updraft velocity swath for this region. It's really elevated in this region of central and especially southern areas of Illinois and Indiana. So we do not ignore the tornado threat. A little weak low up here will enhance the kinematics through Missouri into areas of Illinois and Indiana later today. Don't ignore Kentucky either, okay? Watch out around the Louisville area, Evansville, this region right into here, okay? I would watch out this region right into here for an enhanced tornado threat, okay? Might get a 5% risk up in this region. So we'll watch in this region later today and see what happens with this. And we look at the wind speeds, and guys, this honestly just depends on where the storms form. But just know, you see these little individual areas that are highlighted in red. I mean, that's 50 to 60, 70 mile per hour winds. Please watch out St. Louis. Early this afternoon, I would say the main complex of storms moves through. They could catch you off guard just after lunchtime later today. Some gusty winds could move through, maybe damaging winds. And then we watch, this gets quite intense in this region right here in Illinois, kind of south central Illinois, where winds, some of these storms might push that 60 to 70 mile per hour range. We do have the hatch risk of significant winds. Remember, that's hurricane force winds or higher, which is 74 miles per hour or higher winds. And you keep going here and, watch out for these storms later this evening. This is 10 p.m. to midnight. These begin to blast through Indiana, northern Kentucky in this region. But just know that this isn't exact science. It does show a pretty nasty line of storms kind of working its way through western Kentucky right around where we get to the evening time frame. Watch out Paducah, Kentucky, maybe sometime late this afternoon, this evening. I know I say late afternoon, this evening time frame a lot to the point where it annoys me, but it is very hard in these setups to nail down an exact area time frame wise of what the storms are going to be. So what we do know is the atmosphere here is stabilized this morning because of these showers and storms, but it's already building in this morning in southern Illinois, areas of southeast Missouri, and it will build back into this region a little bit later throughout the morning time frame. Okay, when we take it all the way into, I would say, the mid-afternoon time frame, and the Cape values, and this is why the severe weather threat is much lower in north central and northern Illinois. The Cape values are below 500 joules per kilogram. But you start to get into central and southern Illinois, you begin to get into that rocket fuel for these storms. Cape values well over the 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram range, and even areas in south central Illinois, southern Illinois, where Cape values are over 4,000 joules per kilogram. A lot of Cape. This is fuel to the atmosphere for these storms to mooch off of. So if the Cape ends up verifying higher in these regions, then I think we could have more of a higher end scenario than unfolds today. So that's pretty much it for that region. I will mention the rainfall. More rain is expected, and for Illinois later today, you could get another 1 to 2 inches of rain in south central Illinois. More rain will fall. You guys are definitely making up for lost ground with the rain category, but you're getting these nasty storms in exchange for it. So out west, not a whole lot to talk on, guys. It's heating up. The only thing I'll mention is later this afternoon into the nighttime hours, some showers, even some storm activity is possible in southwest Montana, eastern areas and northeast sections of Idaho, and then western sections of Wyoming. This will make its way a little bit further east and then dissipate with the loss of daytime heating. So really the only area that's going to see any weather today is this region right in here. So it's certainly possible for you guys to see maybe a strong or severe storm or two. Can't rule it out, but not expecting it. Temperatures, we already kind of mentioned this for a lot of areas, but it'll get well over 100 degrees. Again, you guys in areas of Missouri and Arkansas are definitely scorching. It'll be another hot day, but you can tell the ridge is beginning to flatten out. You're beginning to get cooler up here in Iowa and Wisconsin, but it's still very warm. 80s, even some 90s are possible in areas of Minnesota and Wisconsin. You're warming up in the Northeast, 70s and 80s. You're certainly not into that just 60s and 70s anymore. You get in the Mid-Atlantic to the Southeast, widespread 80s and 90s, especially 90s the further southwest you work. Very hot in Florida. The weather has been much more calm lately, besides your standard summer afternoon showers and storms. But it'll be very hot down there if you're vacationing, well into the 90s, especially just off the coastline. Very hot in Texas also. Out west, you're definitely warming up in the southwest. It's getting a little bit above average now. Temperatures will get over 110 degrees. Air temperatures in the desert southwest. You're starting to get those notoriously hot temperatures in the valleys of California. Las Vegas will be pretty warm today. A little bit of a cooler air across the Rockies, but it's heating up big time in these valley regions. Widespread 90s into eastern Montana today, and these valleys of Idaho, Oregon, and Washington State and Nevada. You guys certainly will get well into the 90s in certain areas. We'll have another area of storms to watch out for tomorrow. A large area. It'll be very complex and long to explain like this video. This is one of the longer videos I've made. But be safe out there, guys, today. We'll talk about this in the next video or two. God bless all y'all, and I'll talk to you in the next video.